Hi everyone. In today's video, we're going to talk about profiling JAX and TensorBoard. In my last video, I used TensorBoard to check running time and memory consumption to evaluate different batch sizes for a parallel vision transformer. But in this video, we're going deep into XLA operations and we're going to check which XLA makes our JAX model slow. This will help us debug our JAX model and make it more efficient. Before I start, I want to acknowledge the help of these three references. They helped me write this blog post. The first reference is How to Profile TPU Programs. This is an online book by Google DeepMind. So the book is called How to Scale Your Model. And the other two references are basically two papers by Google. Let's start by asking the basic question. What XLA is actually doing. I found this figure in Intel extension for TensorFlow. Here's what XLA is doing. It takes the code. You could start coding in TensorFlow and JAX and pytorch, and it will take the code, translate it into low level, and based on the hardware you got, it will generate the machine code. The pipeline I'm using JAX, XLA, TPU for this tutorial. So I'm coding in JAX, XLA compiler. It will compile the code to be run on a TPU. The statements generated by XLA are called HLO, a high level operations. This is basically what is happening under the hood when you run a JAX model. I took this figure from this paper, Compiling Machine Learning Programs by a High-Level Tracing. They have a good explanation for the relationship between JAX and XLA. So here they're saying, to generate code, JAX translates the trace into XLA HLO, an intermediate language that models highly accelerable array-level numerical programs. Broadly speaking, JAX can be seen as a system that lifts the XLA programming model into Python and enables its use for accelerable subroutines while still allowing dynamic orchestration. The three stages to generate XLA code are basically explained in this figure here. I got a good screenshot of this figure here in the blog. So the first stage is JAX trace. When you wrap a function in JAX.jet, it basically starts a tracing and generate this graph. And this graph needs fixed tensor sizes and fixed precisions. Every time you change the precision or you change the tensor size, JAX has to redo this again. So once the JAX trace is ready, it will be converted into HLO without fusion. Then XLA will do its magic to create fused computations in HLO. So the first batch will generate the JAX trace, HLO before fusion. Then we will use the fusion. The first batch will go through these three stages, but all the follow-up batches will go through this HLO graph. And that's the optimization that happens. If you go to this article in the documentation of JAX, Quick Start How to Think in JAX, and just down here, they have a good explanation of the relationship between XLA and JAX. These tracer objects are what JAX.jet uses to extract sequence of operations specified by the function. Basic tracers are stand-ins that encode shape and d-type of the arrays, so you cannot change the shape or d-type, but agnostics to the values. This recorded sequence of commutations can then be efficiently applied within XLA to the new input with the same shape and d-type without having to re-execute the Python code. So just to have a sense of JAX trace and HLO Ops, in my last video I ran a parallel vision transformer, and with the batch size 128, this was the average step time, almost 300 milliseconds, and for batch 4096 the average step size was well above 6000 milliseconds. But these numbers are for the step size, the duration of the step size, and because this batch size is larger, it takes longer time. But we're going to look into what are the generated HLO Ops by XLA, and we can look at those using TensorBoard, and we will see how efficient are we using the 8 TPU devices. I'm using 8 TPU devices on Kaggle notebooks. So to look into XLA output, we need TensorBoard. I already explained how to install TensorBoard locally and look into TensorBoard profiles. So installing TensorBoard, basically you create a Conda environment. You try to mimic the same file directory you find in Kaggle notebooks or in Google Colab. Then you can run TensorBoard locally, because if you run it on Google Colab or in Kaggle notebooks, you are at risk of losing the files once the notebook restarts. So this is the web page for TensorBoard, 6500 milliseconds, or the batch size 4096. And I forgot to show you the code. So the code was, the parallel vision transformer, I run it on a CFAR10, and I use the batch size. I haven't changed any of these parameters except for the batch size. So I used batch size 128 and 4096. Also, I used the parallel setup using JAX device mesh. I use this setup 8x1. I only use batch or data parallelism, so this setup here. And code for the vision transformers, just the class for the patch embedding, cutting the image into patches, and attention block followed by MLB block, and yeah, that's basically it. That's what I'm profiling. So I run this in Kaggle notebooks, and I wrap the training loop with JAX.profiler.start trace and JAX.profiler.stop trace, and I only run one epoch. Anyways, I got two profiles here, one with the batch size 128 and one with batch size 4096. And for the tabs or tools for TensorBoard, if you go to XLA, XProf documentation, you will find a good explanation of the tabs. So the trace viewer, the graph viewer, the memory viewer. The one we'll be using in this tutorial, we will be using the graph viewer, the HLO Op Stat, and the trace viewer. So let's start with HLO Op Stats. This is very informative about the model. It gives us a good insight into where the model is actually spending time. So I got this side by side on the blog post. So this is for batch size 128 and this is for batch size 4096. We're going to look into where are these actually in the trace viewer. So if I go to the batch size 128, I go to trace viewer. It takes time to load. It took me a while just to set it up. I think it was a mistake just profiling a whole epoch. If I had to do it again, 10 steps would be enough. You could capture everything in 5 steps. Anyways, so when I was first using this, the trace viewer, it was very painful just to navigate through the trace viewer. Then I found a tip and how to scale your model. You can navigate the trace viewer using video game style controls with AD panning right and left and WS zooming in and out. These controls make navigating a lot easier. So thanks for the guy who suggested controlling this using game controls. I think we all appreciate his help. If I go to step number 3, if we go back to the blog post and look at what really consumes time, the all reduce 104 takes 7% of the time. So in the trace viewer, this is the all reduce 104 under XLA Ops. And if you look under framework Ops, it doesn't have a corresponding framework, which means that this operation was inserted by XLA for efficiency. It's not a result of your JAX code. Whatever you got in your JAX code, this is the source on the Python file, and these are the JAX operation traced by JAX, and these are the corresponding XLA operations. But this all reduce does not have a JAX operation. So it's not part of your code, but it's essential for XLA. So what all reduce is doing, this is a very useful paper that explains what all reduce is doing. Different sharding strategies such as model pipeline or data parallelism, here we're only using data parallelism, introduce different kinds of collectives between the device. A ubiquitous and often performance critical example is the all reduce collective. All reduce is fundamental for averaging calculated gradients across data parallel workers during training, and it's also used to aggregate partial results when model parallelism sharding is used both training and inference. It is used to collect all the model parameters updates or prepare them for the next epoch. This suggests that the hardware, our hardware, could take more batches because it's basically spending much time communicating between devices and synchronizing devices. So if we increase the batch size, the computations will take over, so we won't be spending much time just updating the parameters. And if we move to batch size 4096, let's change the trace viewer to the other profile. The process that takes time is the fusion.53. So if I search for fusion.253, this is the fusion 253, and it has a corresponding JAX computation. The framework Ops and TensorBoard, it means whatever you're coding with. It's PyTorch, XLA, JAX, TensorFlow. So this is the framework. We are no longer losing time on all reduce. We're only doing actual computations on the 4096 batch. If I had to redo this again, I wouldn't go to 4096 batch size. I would choose something between 1024 and 512. So I think that's suitable for this hardware setup because all reduce operation is basically the same for both batch sizes. So if you go to HLO Op Stats or just search for reduce, so this is all reduce 104 for batch size 4096. I copied this command for both batch sizes and compared them side by side in VS Code. So this is the all reduce operation for batch size 4096, and this is the all reduce operation for batch size 128. You could see that they have the same input. All the 100 input tensors are the same. So if I just stop at line 100, you could see it's the same. If you notice, it's only the key for each operation. I think this is an identifier generated by the compiler, and this is the only difference. But everything else is just the same. The D type, the shape of the tensors is just the same. All reduce is the same, but it's taken much time when the batch size is smaller, and it's taken less time when the batch size is larger. I looked at graph viewer and looked for fusion.253, and it turns out that this red rectangle here is fusion 253. So if you zoom in, you could see the header fused expression for fusion 253. And the most interesting part in this is why 256. So if I'm passing a batch size of 4096 and I have 8 TPU devices, each TPU device should have 512. But inside this fused operation, the batch dimension is 256. It was returned to the expected batch dimension. I did the same thing for all reduce. All reduce is just, you could see here all the 104 tensors, and it's just an adding operation. Just final thoughts here about parallelism and compiler efficiency for deep learning. If you have an idea, so let's say that you're not happy about how attention works. You're not happy about the product. You're not happy about multiplying the query and the key and query matrices. You think multiplication is not a good way to find similarities, so you suggest something else. You suggest the distance, you suggest the difference, you suggest something else. And even if you prove this is right, and this works for the model, and this is better for the overall efficiency, it's very hard to sell in a paper. So if you send the paper for review, they will the first thing we'll ask you, you should compare with the regular attention. The regular attention is optimized for JAX and optimized for the XLA compiler, but your proposed attention mechanism is not optimized. Now you are moving from suggesting something in theory to work on something in parallelism and hardware optimization. I think we are moving toward an industry for AI and deep learning more than research. So just think about there was this cool idea when the start of deep learning using a variable batch size. So you start with a larger batch size because the gradient was moving smoothly, and as you towards the end of the epochs, you just use smaller and smaller size batch sizes. There's no way you can do it in modern deep learning libraries. These are optimized for fixed tensor shapes. That's it, guys, for profiling JAX in TensorBoard. I hope it was helpful. I'll collect everything, the screenshots, the links in a one blog post and share it with you guys in the description below. Thanks for watching. Bye.